welcome to this Saturday morning here at GHTR. I'm your host today, and the reason why I'm having this show here is, a lot of people out there, in our listening audience out there, we all go through some hard times in our life, and one of those things that we go through is a divorce. And divorce is a huge thing for a lot of people, and it can have a huge impact on everybody's lives. And I'm actually, I'm just going to say this, I'm not a professional at this. I've been married a couple times, and I've been divorced a couple times. And through my first divorce, I did things wrong. I was actually, I was not, the perfect father. Matter of fact, I was probably one of the examples of being one of the worst fathers, and the reason for that is we'll get into a little bit later in the show. It's not going to be a very long show, so I'm not just going to take up anybody's time. But the reason why I'm having this show this morning is because it's terrible. I mean, I've got friends who are going through some divorces, and sometimes these divorces are good, and it's really up to you on what you're going to make that divorce become. But one of the sad things that we have to worry about is in a divorce, if you have no children, a divorce is easy. It can it can be easy. It can be nasty. I'm not saying it can't be, but I do know that a divorce either way it's an end of a relationship, and you might have years invested in this. I mean, I've seen divorces that go for years and years, and they'll wait for their children to be out of high school or on to college, and then they just they'll stick around with each other because of the kids. They don't want to get a divorce because they know how nasty it can be and the kind of effect it can have on children. Today I really want to talk about I believe, in my opinion, that there's a proper way to have a divorce and to make it easy for the children. And one of the biggest things is you want to keep your children as far away from the divorce as possible. However, in some cases, it's not always that easy. And I wrote an article one time. It was called "Swallowing Your Pride." I posted on Facebook a few times, and what it talks about is, in every divorce, there's going to be a divorce is the end of a relationship. Okay, no matter how you look at it, the divorce is the end of that relationship, and it's hard. Believe me, it can be incredibly hard, and somebody is going to get hurt, and either the wife or is going to be hurt, or the husband's going to be hurt, and most likely there's going to be resentment, there's going to be hate, there's going to be jealousy, and all this stuff. It's just built up emotions, and sometimes it can cloud our best judgment. And that's why, I'm a firm believer in, when my marriage ended with my daughter's mother, I made a commitment that I look back. I came from a divorced family. My mother and father were divorced when I was approximately, I think I was like 9 years old. And one of the biggest things I remember throughout the whole divorce was my parents, how they would talk about the other parent. It was your dad's fault. It was your mom's fault. Your dad did this. Your mom did that. It was a constant back and forth kind of a struggle. And even to this day, after all those years, my parents are still with me, thank God, and they still, it's the same thing. It's, there's still that built up tension. It's their fault, it's her fault, it's his fault. It never dies. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm not going to say what I have to say today is going to help everybody. But maybe, just maybe, if you just think about it and take the time to think about it, is it really worth putting your children through so much heartache? Matter of fact, I want to talk about, where my first divorce was. I was angry. I was angry. I was upset. I was jealous because at that time I didn't see the real reason why my wife, the woman who I loved, the woman that I fell in love with through in high school, the woman that I shared my life with, didn't love me anymore. I mean, maybe it wasn't the fact that she didn't love me, but I was at a pivotal point in my life where I wasn't taking care of my family, and she had to make a choice. And she made the right choice. Today I see that, but back then I was horrible. And it affected my son, and in ways that I never in this world could ever imagine how it affected my son. And really, to be honest with you, after years of me thinking about this in my head, I'm thinking, I didn't realize until just recently when my son was telling me about things that he remembered as a child. I can't take that stuff back. I can't turn back the hands of time, and I can't take anything back. But my son remembers that to this day. And he remembers, I just remember one time he says, "Oh yeah, that was a bad day. It was horrible, because, an altercation happened. I did something because I was angry. I was so built up with this anger and jealousy and rage that, what I did was I pushed her down and I hurt her. I really, that day, I remember that day is like it happened yesterday. Now, just imagine my little son, who I was going to pick up, and he saw that happen. He saw his dad push his mom. And that day, destroyed any kind of hope, any kind of anything that I would ever have any relationship with his mom, either good or bad. It turned out to be bad, because that was the day that I'm almost 100% sure that she completely lost every respect for me that there could ever be. And through the years, I've changed, and over time, it took me a while to realize it wasn't her fault. It was my fault for what happened. And that's one of the things I'm telling you guys and gals, when you make a mistake, it's hard to end up, it's hard to fess up that, a marriage doesn't break apart because it's one-sided. There is not one side. It's always two sides. It doesn't matter what your excuse is. It doesn't matter, but there was a breakdown. Because if you say, well, I caught my husband in bed with another woman, why did that happen? Was there something that caused him to do it? Because you could say all guys are dogs. Some ways, yeah, but at the same token, there had to have been something that would cause him, because he married you because he loved you. And I'm not saying this is going to be like this way all over the place. I'm just saying, you guys got together, you guys got married for a reason. Whatever that reason was, you went, you got married, you were together, you loved each other. There had to have been something there. But something during the course of your marriage caused something that caused the other person either to fall out of love with you, doesn't trust you, doesn't believe that you're going to be able to take care of them anymore. And that was really based on my first marriage. I mean, I seriously was a mess. And it was because it was my fault, because I didn't know how to take care of my family. And she needed to do something. She needed to make a decision. She needed to protect my son. and she didn't want to live the lifestyle that I was going to try to give to her because I didn't know how to do it. Now, I'm telling people this is because it's important, because of the psychological damage that it caused. Now, it wasn't totally bad, but today, when I see my son, and I've talked to him, and we talk about the old times, he remembers a lot of that. And it's because, I was so angry. I was jealous. I was just totally overcome with so much emotion. I wasn't thinking about him. I was only trying to think about ways of making her feel like I felt. Okay? And that's important. That's really important for everybody to understand that. Okay, it is. It does work that way. You just don't understand what you are possibly or what you could be doing to your child. It is small as it might be. Okay, now after she had left me, after a while, it took me a couple years to realize that it wasn't her fault. It was my fault. And I had to accept responsibility for that. I have asked her to forgive me, and she wants no part of that. She will probably never forgive me for what had happened. And I don't blame her. Okay? Because it was that bad. All right? And the thing about it is back in that time, I had no idea what I was doing. I was hurt. I was freaking frustrated. I was jealous. And I wanted my wife back. Whatever it took, I was going to try to get my wife back. Okay? So, as years passed, when I realized, that I had done something bad, and how would I later on in life explain it to my son why I was that way? Well, there is no other way but to tell him that you made a mistake, and you regret that. And people have asked me before, if I have any regrets in my life, and I would say that would be the only regret I have is that time, not understanding that she had to make a decision, and she made the right decision, and I made the wrong decision by being angry, jealous, and causing her life a bunch of crap, and that's something that this happens all over. And when I got married a second time, when my daughter was born, one of the first things I did immediately was I knew I had to take care of my family. So I surrendered everything to my daughter's mom. I wanted not a repeat of the marriage I had, my first one. I did everything right. I worked. I paid the bills. I was a good father, and I do know that I was a good husband. But even that, people change. It happens. You fall out of love. Okay? And the thing about it is even though that marriage did not work out either, okay, I made it perfectly clear to her, and I made it perfectly clear to myself that I would not ever, ever put my daughter through what I put my son through. Okay? And this caused me, during the time when my daughter's mom filed for divorce, again, I was upset. I was angry. And I was jealous. But this time around, I knew exactly what was important. And it wasn't what I felt. It wasn't what she felt. But it was what was going to happen to our daughter. Okay? And that right there is where I developed a skill and pretty much swallowed my pride. Even though I was upset, even though I was jealous, even though I was angry and, I just didn't know. This time around, I did what was right. Okay? I didn't take it out on her, and I didn't take it out on my daughter. And it worked. I swallowed my pride. I smiled, and I wanted to be friends. There's no reason why you guys can't end a marriage and be friends. Some people would say to me, "No, there's no reason. He's an asshole, or she's a bitch, and all this other stuff." It doesn't matter. You guys are the ones that control that. You could end your marriage on a good note. There doesn't have to be this hostility. If your husband comes to you and says, "I want a divorce," okay, there's going to be the question of why don't you love me no more, and all this other stuff. There's going to be the hurt. I mean, it breaks everybody's heart. You guys need to sit down and you need to discuss it. There doesn't have to be all this anger. It doesn't have to be all this hostility. It doesn't have to be that way. Okay? Sometimes one person might be that way. And you can't control that. There's nothing you can do about that. Okay? And the thing about it is the more you or that person causes you to want to flip, to want to don't break. Smile. Shrug your shoulders. Because you really know down deep in your heart that person's really not that way. Is not trying to do this. But that person might be trying to hurt you. All right? In the middle of all this is our children. Our children only know mom and dad. That's it. They know that you are dad. They know that you are mom. All right? And these little children only know that. Period. That's all they know. The older they get, they say the older that it gets, the less it hurts them. You take a little child between maybe the ages of 1 and 3 or whatever, and mom and dad split up. That little person doesn't know what the hell's going on. Why is mom and dad not in the same house? Why is my mom living here and my dad living here? But you know what? They really don't understand, and it really, at that point, it's up to you guys to make it good or to make it bad. Okay? The older they get, it's up to you, it's up to your spouse to make it good or to make it bad. Period. There's no other way. It's up to you guys. If only one wants to play nice, that's good. Then you be the nice parent. But that doesn't mean you got to backstab the other one or talk bad about the other one. If the other one is out of control, you do your best to try to make those children as happy as possible. Okay? Now, we all know that you got to spend time with mom, you got to spend time with dad, and you got to go to mom's, you got to go to dad's. Dad has them usually on the weekends, or mom. It's either way, it changes these days. It doesn't matter. All right? But here's what happens. You get an angry, pissed off parent. Okay? An angry, pissed off parent. And jealous. They go and get their kid for the weekend or whatever the case may be. And it's like It's almost like a freaking interrogation when that little child is sitting there and it's just eating that parent alive, and that parent saying, who was there? What was they doing? What were they eating? Are they sleeping with them? And all this other stuff, and all these questions, and this little kid's going, yeah, no, I don't know. Why are you doing this to me, Mom and Dad? Why are you putting me in the middle of this? I didn't do this. I love you both. But some parents will spend so much time, devote so much time into just interrogation alone that they don't see what it's doing to their child. Think about it. Seriously think about that. Think about that little person who doesn't know what the hell is going on and being slingshotted back and forth between Mom and Dad. Questions and questions and questions and questions. After a while, that's all that little guy or that little girl's going to know. And you know who's to blame for that? It's the parents. It's not the one parent, it's both parents. Think about it. Think about that. As they get older, all they're going to know is Mom hates this, Dad hates that. Mom did this, Mom did that. What's your mom doing? What's your dad doing? Who's your mom sleeping with? Who's your dad sleeping with? Who spanked you? Did Mom spank you? Did he spank you? Did he spank you? Did Mom spank you? Did Dad spank you? What? It doesn't make a bit of difference. Your anger, your hostility, everything that you do is going to affect those little children. One of the things I did with my daughter is every time my daughter was with me, I really didn't talk about Mom at all. I'm not going to say I never asked her, well, who's that guy? Or who's this? Or whatever the case may be. I put my daughter's mom on a pedestal for my daughter. I said, your mom's smart, your mom's pretty, your mom's, she really knows what she's doing. If your mom knows, if your mom says this, then there's a good reason for it. All through that time, it was hard for me. Believe me, it was hard. I was a little bit angry, but I'm telling you, I look at my daughter today. What could I have done to her? I could have caused a lot of psychological problems. I see a lot of my daughter's friends who come from divorced parents or stuff like that, and they're a mess. Some are okay, I'm not saying that they're all, but I'm just saying, I'm not saying my method's perfect. I'm not saying that it's easy to do. But everything you do as a parent while your children are growing up, whether you are parents that are together or your parents that are apart, affects the growth of your child. Think about it. I mean, is there any reason in this world that you have to spend, let's say, okay, you're a father, and Mom has pretty much full-time custody or primary custody, or you're sharing custody or whatever, and you go to pick up your children for the weekend or for your time, for your parenting time. Let's just say it that way, for your parenting time. During that time when those children are in your house, all you do is smother them and want to get information out of them. Every little thing that you do, you just drill them day after day, hour after hour. You go out for a walk, and you're asking them. You go for a drive, and you're asking them. Because you just cannot let go of the fact that your wife, or in other different cases, or your husband, left you. And you want to know what that person's doing, everything. And so the only way you have a connection to find out is by using your children. That is wrong. It's none of your children's business. It's no reason to do this. And parents who do this, that is not good parenting. You are not a good father or a good mother by doing that. When your parents come together, when the parents come together, you don't fight in front of your children. You don't scream at each other in front of your children. You're putting them in between that. That's horrible. Even if you are together and you're a married couple and you have your children, you never argue in front of your children. They don't want to deal with that crap. And yet, parents do it. Why do they do it? In my opinion, I look at it from a different standpoint. You cannot use your child as a pawn to hurt the other parent. If you sit there and say bad things, even if you're on the phone with people and you just sit there and you go, God, I hate that blankety blank blank blank, all that bitch and all this other stuff. Your children are in the other room. They can hear you saying that. And it's probably the same way where they go and they're with mom or they're with dad and they can hear you talking to people and they can hear. Where do you think you think your children just block this out? They hear what you're saying. They can hear it through the walls. I have a really good friend who is a family attorney. And one day she was telling me about a story about a couple that was so angry. They got a divorce. And mom, was living mom had pretty much full custody of the boys that they had. It was a boy and a girl. Actually, I think it was a boy and two girls. And what would happen is the father was so angry, so mad, that every time that he dropped his children off, he would strip them down naked, and make them walk to their mother's house up the driveway because he didn't want her to have their clothes or their underwear or anything like that. He would strip them naked. Every time that mom would send the children out to go get in the car with him so he could have them for his visitation, he was so angry that he would strip them down naked and put his clothes that he bought for them on them and then throw the clothes on the ground and drive off squealing the wheels. And this happened for can you imagine the trauma that those children's gone through? Whose fault was it? Was it Ma's fault or was it Dad's fault? It's both parents' fault. Personally, if I was the Ma, there is no way in hell that I would have done everything to get and film it and go to a family court, and it ended up being that way. He ended up having supervised visitations. And I believe that's what needs to happen more. Think about it. You're taking your child and you're using your child. You're interrogating your child. You're asking your child to do things that they normally would not do. Exploit your children. You would even exploit your own children to hurt your ex. That's how bad it can get. And who is in the middle? Our children, the ones that we're supposed to love and to protect from things like this. Think about what you're doing to your child. Divorce is not easy. It doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be a war. It doesn't have to be that way. Divorce is nasty. It can be nasty. So many parents out there right now, you're going through a divorce, and you better take a good look at your children and see the innocence. They do not deserve to be put in the middle of your hatred, of your anger, of your jealousy, and everything else, no matter what it is. And it doesn't matter. It's not it's both of the parents. It's not one. There's no one to blame. The parents cannot live together. The parents get a divorce. It's the parents' problem, not the children's problem. And yet we still do it. And we still wonder why a lot of our kids are so messed up. It's because you mess them up. I got friends who are going through like divorces and stuff like that, and I tell them, the first thing I tell them, whatever you do not fight in front of those children. Whatever you do not talk bad about the other parent in front of your children. No matter how hard it is for you to do that, don't do it. Because what you're actually doing, when you're sitting there and you're telling, like, say, let's say hypothetically, let's say you got the mom, okay? Let's say her little daughter comes in after being with her dad, and she's got this really nice, beautiful little dress on that her dad bought for her, and she's all happy, and she's just, look at her come into the house, she's happy. And then the angry mom is like, comes in there and, what did you do? Who was he with? You know, where did you go? Questions and questions. Don't say that you just let these little children talk to you, because you know what? That's bullshit. You're interrogating. Oh, I'm going to wait for them to answer the question. Those children are not going to do that unless you tell them. Anybody that has ever told me this, and this just really pisses me off, okay? And this is what really pisses me off, is when that parent will say, well, they told me this, they told me that. How did they tell you this? How did that conversation start? Well, they just told me. No, they did not. They're there to see you. They don't care about what goes on there. If you're a parent, okay, here's another thing. You got to get through your head. What happens in those houses is their business, none of your business, unless your child is being completely abused, starved, beat, or something like that. Okay? What happens when that marriage is over, it's over, ladies and gentlemen. There is nothing you can do. What goes on in your ex-wife or your ex-husband's house is none of your business. Who they have over, none of your business. Who they're sleeping with, none of your business. Your only business is your children. Period. Now, I know that there's cases out there, and I'm sure I'm going to get a flood of emails saying, this is what happened with my husband. This is what happened with my wife. You know what? Doesn't frickin' matter. What only matters is those children. Years ago, I have a really good friend of mine, somebody who I grew up with. And through the years, I watched their marriage, and I was so envy of these people. They stayed together. They had like the perfect marriage. And they had 3 little children, and and it was like great. And I used to go and hang out there quite a bit, and during this time I watched this marriage break down. And I remember one day I went over to visit, and my friend, he was at work, and I went over there, and I think he was on his way home from work. I don't know what the case was, but I was just sitting there, and I was talking to her, and she was saying to me, everything that was going on. And I remember, this is after my divorce. This is after I had realized that I was the bad person. After I had realized that whatever happened in my life, I did not want to see this happen to my friends. And I told her, I said, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, regardless of who it hurts. And I said, these children right here, they have to grow up with this. And she did what she had to do. And again, when she did what she had to do, he was angry. He was hateful. And he tried something really insanely crazy. And it cost him his children. And now his children are grown. They love their dad. The thing about it is, but really, they have no real relationship with their dad. They don't go out of their way to have a relationship with dad because all what he did. You psychologically will hurt your children if you continue to do what you do. Plain and simple. I'm not a professional here. The thing about it is what really bothers me, okay, is how parents will use their children as pawns to hurt the other parent. And that is such a wide spectrum of ways of doing it. Okay. One of the biggest things is, oh, it's time to go home to your dads. I don't want to go home to my dads. I want to stay with you. And all this other stuff. And the parents says, oh, I know. You don't want to go back there. And you sit there and you hug the children. No. The correct thing to say is, look, that's your mom. You got to be with mom. We share you guys. I get you this time. She gets you this time. But no, there are parents out there that'll sit there and they'll sit there and they'll sit there and they'll just keep it going and keep it going because they cannot get over the fact that they're angry, they're mad, and they're going to try something to hurt that parent so bad. Seriously, who are you really affecting but your children? I know some of you guys out there are going to be pissed at me. You're saying, what the hell is this guy talking about? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, guess what? Yes, I do know what I'm talking about. We use our children as pawns. I did it. I openly admitted it. I did it. I was angry. I was pissed. I wanted her back. I wanted my marriage back. I wanted her back. And I was going to do everything I could do to hurt her. And the only way I could hurt her my second marriage, I swallowed my pride. I wanted my daughter to grow up without that divorced family. I remember, as a matter of fact, this is something that there's no denying it. When my daughter was in the 5th grade, okay, me and Mom got called in to a conference because my daughter was struggling on some things. And the teacher came in and said to me, well, we understand, a divorce could have a real serious impact. Me and my daughter's mother look back at each other, and what do we say? We look at each other and we go, there's no problem with us. We're friends. When my daughter had student conferences, it was me and Mom at her conferences. Not only me and Mom, but me, Mom, Mom's boyfriend, and my girlfriend or fiance. We rallied together as a family. We might be a family that lives apart, but at the same time, she didn't have to, 100% of her time to me, but we spent time as parents. Okay? It didn't mean we had to sleep with each other. It didn't mean we had to go home with each other. It didn't mean we had to agree with each other. All it meant is we never fought in front of my daughter. And to this day, my daughter, one day, I'll never forget it. She said, I got two great parents who care for me, who are very strict. Of course, in this one, Mom was bad, bad cop. I was a good cop. I was like, I let my daughter get away with a lot of stuff. I spoiled my daughter. No, it's not because I went against what she was doing. It's because I spoiled my daughter. She's my little girl, for Christ's sakes. But me and Mom, when it came down to the bottom line, me and Mom would talk about it. And me and Mom got along enough to talk about it, and we didn't fight about her. We didn't need to fight about her. The marriage was over. We needed to move on. Look, a lot of parents out there in this world, they do what they do because that's just the way it is. Okay? And no matter how we look at it, we are the parents. Our children follow what we do. Do you want your children to grow up with hate? Do you want your children to grow up with the same thing that you're dishing out? Do you want them to do that? No. You want your children to grow up loving, to help others, not to have hate, not to learn what hate is. And yet there are parents out there who are so consumed with so much hate and anger. It just frustrates me to hell. It happens. There is no excuse. Let me tell you that right now. There is no excuse for being a parent. A parent, we are supposed to raise and nurture our children, not destroy them, and give them memories of mom and dad screaming at each other. Now we all know that there's things that happen. You know what I'm saying? We all understand that. We all know that things happen. There could be alcohol abuse. There could be drug abuse. There could be, physical abuse. There are things that happen that we cannot control. Well, you can control alcohol and stuff, but sometimes it's just, you know what I'm saying. I don't need to get into a long discussion about that, but there are cases and there are things that happen that we have to get away. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices. And sometimes, if that means a sacrifice that you have to give your children up because you don't want to see them hurt, that's something you might want to think about. Life is hard enough. And yet we wanna throw all this stuff on your children. You want to sit there and you just want to drive that stuff in I cannot imagine the crap that goes on. Little child sitting there, the parents so angry, and all they do is want to brainwash that child and hating that other person because that parent is so freaking pissed I want that child to hate their mom, or I want that child to hate their dad, and all this other stuff. And it's just so built up, and you're putting all that anger and you're putting all that energy into your child. How dare you? You are not a good parent when you do that. Am I right or wrong? Think about it. Parents, in my opinion, it's up to you to make sure that you protect your child from this stuff. But if you can't protect your child and you just add to it, I'm going to tell you something right now. There is not a person right now that can tell me I'm wrong. There is no excuses. There is no excuses. Period. There's nothing to it. You cannot deny it. If you are sitting there and you're interrogating your children, and all you do is sit there and cause so much drama when they're with you, you don't deserve to have them children in your house. If both parents can't do it, then you know what? Those children don't belong with any of those parents. They need to be in a loving, nurturing environment. And yet, our court systems don't recognize this all the time. In my opinion, it is what it is. You're the parents, for crying out loud. And those children count on you. They depend on you day in and day out. And all you can do is sit there and just cause so much anger. If you have that much anger, don't get your children. Because all you're going to do is to spoil their time with you anyway. Show them a good time. Don't talk about mom or don't talk about dad. And if you do have anything to say, make it positive. Even though you might think of it and you might hate that person, whatever, make it positive for your child. No matter what. Yep, there's parents out there who just won't listen. They think they know it. They think they're so angry, and they're so clouded by their own hate. Or they use any kind of means to make the other person look like crap in the eyes of others. And you're doing it all in front of your children. You know what that reminds me of? Someone who's very ugly. A monster. I hate to say that, but it's true. Children need both their parents. I know that there's circumstances. There are sometimes circumstances that we can't control. Don't sit there and go, oh, that's me. No, it's not you. And you know I'm right. If you use your children as pawns, if you use your children to hurt the other parent, you don't deserve to be a parent. You shouldn't have children. Those little people have no idea what's going on. And through life, it'll psychologically damage them as time goes by. Think about it. One of the biggest things I hated about my parents' divorce was the years and years of them constantly bitching about the other parent. Till one day I just said, I don't care. You guys have been divorced for 24 years. Why do I give a crap who was to blame? It's over with. Get over it. But some parents just hang on and hang on, hang on. If I had a wish in my life, one thing I would do over is my first marriage. I would have did it differently. She did what she had to do. And there's other parents that have to do what they have to do. And that's just because they have to do it. No matter what the cause is, if it's something like that, then it's my fault. Or it's the other person's fault, and they have to own up to that. A marriage ends not because of one. It ends because of two. And there are rare occasions, like I said, very rare. But that doesn't include a lot of people. Those children that you have brought into this world deserve happiness, not anger. They deserve to love their mother and their father, not be told to hate one or the other. That's what it's all about. But when you go there and all you can do because whatever you do, how you do it, how you build yourself, all that anger and everything that you're venting, you're doing it to your children. You're like, you're like a disease. You're like cancer. And you're going to eat those children's personality up. And you're going to affect those children. It's you that's doing it. Nobody else but you. You are the one that controls that. And yet, you're going to continue to do it. Think about it. Invest time into it. Nowadays we have Facebook, and I've seen this so many times. Oh my God, how people will just use Facebook just to attack. It's childish. Don't air your dirty laundry on Facebook, because it makes you look pathetic. I don't know. We're parents, man. Our children are, that song, our children are our future. And yet, you're willing to destroy your child's future because you're pissed off. Not right. Turn the other cheek. And swallow your pride. Someone's going to have to do it, no matter how hard it is. Thanks a lot for listening. You're listening to GHDR, Nationwide Podcast Radio, www.ghtalkradio.com.